Welcome to the Halftime Series. This is a 2-week series, so I would invite you to wear your favorite jersey next weekend, and let's go ahead and demonstrate to the world that we can disagree without breaking out into fights over teams. So I remember a lesson I received in sportsmanship on the very first day of a wrestling tournament that I went to as a 14-year-old freshman. I was on the team. I just lost my final match of the day in the morning because I wasn't very good, but I wasn't now going to be progressing through the brackets. And some other teammates were going to keep on going throughout the day, but a friend of mine and I were like, hey man, we're kind of done with this. Let's go ahead and get showered. We're wearing our little singlets, and so we're all cold. Let's put on our winter gear. We're just going to go up into the bleachers and just kind of sit. We'll watch everybody cool out, maybe try to get some candy bars from the concession stand. Well, we're up there in the corner, and the varsity coach, Mr. Tiffany, approaches myself and my friend. And Mr. Tiff, that's what we called him, he wasn't pleased, and he kind of scolded us that day. He told us, hey, this team, he said, get out here. And we came down there like, oh, Mr. Tiff. He said, this team is not about you. For you to get ready and then just do your part and then say, I guess I'm just going to wait out my time, it's a slap in the face to the rest of your teammates. They need to be able to look over to you while they're wrestling during their match and see their brothers cheering them on. You have a role even when you're done with the excitement. You need to be supporting your brothers. That means you dress like them. You don't change out of your singlet. That means you stay engaged. It means you cheer for them. You let them know that you're with them. Who knows that later in the day, some of them might win because they're encouraged by the way that their teammates are encouraging them. There's more to being on a team than just what is exciting for us. That was a profound lesson that has stayed with me through the years. Our church, Fierce Church, it's a team. 2 years ago, we cast vision for some things we really felt like God wanted to do. We started this stewardship campaign together. And this is what we said. We said we're going to create a community hub that engages the heart of our city, connecting family, leisure, and worship into one space as a beacon of hope for the drawing of the lost and the raising of a new generation of kingdom bringers. The full vision will engage our community and catapult the effectiveness of our children's ministry and our worship experiences. It was pretty ambitious. And we said we would start with a goal of $800,000 for phase one. Now, by the grace of God, we're halfway there. We're halfway through raising that money. But that's just phase one. And then there's going to be a bit more for phase two. And we said when we started, the whole thing might take 7 to 10 years to pull off. So today, I want to review the vision. I want to talk about where we are and where we want to go as a community together. You know, having vision is a huge blessing and advantage. Without vision, we lose our way. Vision shows us new directions and opportunities for the mission. You remember the mission? To develop prevailing followers of Christ who walk with Him step by step. That's the vision of Fierce Church, and we're going to do that. Vision provides us with a focus, with something to be excited for, to believe for, to walk toward. It's a picture of a better future than the one that we currently have. And we want to have a crystal clear picture of what happens at the church building, what happens in house churches, what happens online. Vision gives us courage to speak up when we might otherwise be silent. And it's a picture of how God could do a new thing through our collaboration. Vision has the power to bring us together. Even when I look at what's already been achieved or bought or purchased or built, I'm gripped by the idea that God did this through us. It was a community thing. And those who've been part of it will always have the knowing between us, we did this with God together. What could be a little bit discouraging is that we've raised half the amount, but we did it in 2 years rather than a year and a half. That means the whole campaign, if we were to finish to the original goal, will take 4 years instead of 3. There are a number of reasons for this. First, though we had originally had over $800,000 worth of pledges, some had to back out of their commitment, and others have not yet started on theirs. Others still have finished their pledges, which is awesome. They're completely done, and the majority are faithfully giving each and every month to see God's kingdom established in these new and exciting ways among us. Now, to date, people have given $422,000, which is incredible. Even during a pandemic, we've made some real progress toward beginning the revamp of Fierce Kids Lobby, doing some of the minor tech upgrades in the auditorium, and being able to use some of the money that was set apart for tech to accelerate our ability to produce a digital worship experience. That's how you're able to watch this right now. There's still more to do in this phase, including detail work in the Fierce Kids Lobby, updates in the entire lobby, and still more to do in the auditorium. Now, some might ask, why are we still investing in the building when it seems like the pandemic has really hindered people's ability to come here? Here's why. Because this pandemic will not last forever, as hard as that is to believe right now. I'm not trying to be flippant about this, but history is a terrific instructor. There have been plagues and pandemics throughout history, even some in modern times, and here's what we see every time. You really can't keep people from coming back together. People like to be together, and the fear that you and I know characterizes a lot of our culture right now will someday be gone. Maybe not as soon as we would like, but it soon will be gone. And it's okay for us to slow down the pace of progress because why? Because we're on God's timetable. It would be foolish to abandon the vision just because the terrain on the road to the vision is a little bit different than we expected. So now is the time for thankfulness, for faith, for reflection, and for an expectation to see God work miracles among us. We tend to look at a problem like it's God's problem or it's their problem, but it's not our problem. So Jesus and his disciples, they've been on this ministry expedition. They came back tired. They're trying to get some rest. Jesus has just heard that his cousin John the Baptist has been killed. He tries to take his disciples, tries to take the boys on a little trip to recover after just a long ministry stint. I certainly know what that's like. You know what it's like to just be burnt out and you need to get away and you're trying to get away. He's trying to get through this, not just from the ministry toughness, but from his own emotional pain. And yet he encounters others who are hurting. Can you relate to that? It's hard to think about helping other people with pain and grief when it feels like our own world is falling apart. I'm sure that so many of you get halfway through the day or you get halfway through the week and you think, I'm barely keeping my own head above water. How am I supposed to go and help somebody else? Let's pick it up. Matthew 14, starting in verse 13, it says, "Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself." Heard about his cousin passing away, being murdered. It wasn't passing away. "But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw the great crowd, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick." I want to give you 3 team exercises for those to come. These are 3 things we should be preparing for to be on the team. Number 1, see and have compassion. When he saw the crowd, when the crowd became visible, he had compassion. I think it might be true that we're not really seeing as we ought to see until we're seeing with compassion. I'm so thankful for the people in my life whom God uses to remind me that I might just not be seeing everything clearly and that I need to have compassion. I'm kind of like a truth guy. You know, like I try to be loving, but I'm just, my natural bent is like, I just want to find out what the truth is, and I'm not thinking because I'm not really as feeling as some people, not feeling what they might feel. But Jesus had compassion on these people. He says, I want to show my kindness to them. Now, this is not the only time that Jesus saw the crowds and felt this way. Matthew 9:36 says, when he saw the crowds, listen to this, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And Jesus sees these people and he has this good kind of creator's pity on them. When I think about the things that people are struggling with today, the anxiety, the addictions, the bullying, the fear. Did you know that 34% of the people within 5 miles of the church building I'm recording this in have a propensity to struggle with alcohol addiction? 34%, dude, that's a lot. And 23% have a propensity to struggle with an opiate addiction. That's right in our own backyard, and yet that is alarming statistics. Now, Jesus could just see. We have to ask God for help to see. You know, this For Those to Come spiritual journey began bathed in prayer, and now it's the time to continue to pray. Prayer is often where the Lord shines new light into our dark hearts. We can be kind of lit up in our heart for a while, but then we get dark and the Lord needs to help us care again about certain things. Things become visible. It helps us to see ourselves. It helps us to see others as God sees them. Prayer gives us vision of God's generous disposition toward us, toward others. It uncovers hidden motives as we acknowledge maybe some of the wounds that are shaping our thinking. Let's pick it back up in verse 15. Now, when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy some food for themselves." These people were so enamored with Jesus that they're getting a little bit absent-minded. They're like not even thinking about food. And the disciples come to Jesus asking him, "Hey, Lord, you need to do something because we can see where this thing is going to go." They cared about these people. They didn't want them to be stranded. You and I can look and we can see the world around us and the pain, the obvious hunger, the estrangement and the confusion. And we say, hey, you know what? Jesus needs to do something about this. We look out and we care and we say, I've got an idea. The disciples say, we've got an idea. Jesus, you need to do something about this. But listen to Jesus, verse 16. They need not go away. You give them something to eat. Jesus is like, oh, something should be done, but I've got an idea. It's going to be done by you. I want you to provide for them. You provide for them what you don't yet have. It will bring me glory, but I also want you to have a much more active role in the miracle than you are thinking. I want to feed the people through you, not around you or just because you asked me to. How many know that Jesus could have just he's about to do a miracle. He could have just commanded, just fill all their bellies with Pop-Tarts. I mean, he didn't need to multiply anything. He could just command it so and they'd all be full. But no, Jesus wants to teach the disciples a lesson. I'm going to use you to bring about the very thing that would glorify me most, but you've got to get involved. Okay, number 2. Hear Jesus say, you do something about it. Verse 15 said, the disciples came to him and said, this is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy food for themselves. We might go to Jesus and say, Lord, you need to do something about the loneliness, about the isolation, the confusion, the unforgiveness, the vitriol in our world today. Receiving this burden, this assignment from Jesus is itself a major thing. We say, Lord, I'm bringing this need to you. Do you have a role for me in this? You might say, man, well, you know, Carter, I'm sure my brothers and sisters in the future, they're going to be just fine. I think I'm just going to coast. I think I'm going to mind my own business. But I think like Mr. Tiff, I'm not confident that Jesus would approve of our lack of zeal for those to come, for our brothers and sisters. We're called to do more than just make it through. Parents, you know this. You don't just want your kids to make it through, right? No, you want to position your kids to thrive. Man, you want them to hit the ground running. You want them to be awesome human beings that are going forward and bearing fruit. You want to give them every advantage to start their lives with a lot of strength, with a lot of force, with a lot of push behind them. You're not going to be like, yeah, I don't know, man, good luck. I guess you'll figure out something. No, you want to do everything you can to make this go well for them. And my friends, you and I are spiritual parents of those to come, coming next week and coming in 5 years and coming in 10 years. And we've got to be stirred up and be like, no, it's not enough for me just for them to figure something out. I want to position them rightly. Why are we so concerned about those who come after us? If we do just enough to make it through, but we don't make it easier for those who come after us, then our victories, they're only shallow and temporary. We win this battle not just by defeating our enemies in our day, but by leaving behind strongholds of righteousness and truth and peace in their place. This is why I want to ask you to bring those needs to Jesus and say, Lord, do you want me to do something about this? Or what else do you want me to be doing about this? Verse 17 says, they said to him, we have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish. We have only. That's number 3. Bring your only. Bring your only. But we have only. They say, hey, what we've got, it's not enough. But here's the real issue. Our only, when we give that away, it removes all of our security. Our money is like a security base. And the truth is, we often don't want to reveal, our money. We don't want to give away our security, because whoever we're showing this to or whoever we're giving this to, they might ultimately betray us, even if they only do it by accident. So we're like, how can I trust that everything's going to be okay if I give this away or if I entrust this to you? Here's what we know. Jesus knows our need for security. He's concerned that because security is such a deep human need, He doesn't want us to misplace our trust in things or people that can't offer us real security. That's why He says, don't store up treasure for yourselves here on earth. Matthew 6:19 says, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus says, through your only is how I'm going to do the miracle. Your only will provide for them. I want to multiply your only and turn it into my plenty. Whatever we give to Jesus, when we say, God, this is all I have, I don't know how to get any more, He says, give it to me, bring it to me. I will take your only. I know you only have that. That's how I get the glory, is I turn it into my plenty. This is a place I consistently hear challenge from the enemy. I'd like to say I'm so mature that never enters into my mind, but when I sense that the Lord is leading me to give something in my heart, I often just kind of hear this, but what if I need it? But what if it's not enough? Or even if I do give, that still won't be enough. And I'm not counting on Jesus' ability to take my only and turn it into His plenty. Here's the secret. It's in verse 18. And He said, bring them here to me. Then He ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass, and taking 5 loaves and the 2 fish, He looked up to heaven and said the blessing. Then He broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. Maybe for some, reviewing this campaign will inspire you. It'll stir you up. It'll bring to mind the fact that you can bring Jesus your limited resources. So next weekend, here's what we're going to do. We're going to invite everybody to be a part of just like kind of a renewal with the for those to come commitments, the pledges. So next weekend, everyone's going to get one of these little pledge cards, commitment cards. For those of you who are already part of this, you already did this. This is just like the one that you already did. We're not trying to milk you. Can I just tell you that? I just do think over time, over 2 years' time, there's something powerful about going back to the original thing that I said I was going to do and asking God, would you put the burden of this on me again? And how do you want me to behave any differently than I've been behaving? So we're going to, in the power of the Holy Spirit, and there'll be, you don't have to have a physical one. There'll be a digital one, I'm sure, in your Fierce app or whatever. But we're going to, in the power of the Holy Spirit, we're going to pledge together. And we're not going to do like a big hullabaloo about it. We're not going to do a ceremony about it. We're just going to create a space during the worship experience where we respond to the Lord, however He's leading us. Now, you already heard this. You already know. It's true. We're looking to add an additional $108,000 to the current pledges. And we're asking those who feel led to maybe consider extending their current pledge for an additional year, even though they're rocking it out, so that we can make it to our goal. Some, you might renew your pledge. There's a percentage that made the pledge but haven't yet started to fulfill it. Maybe this will be your weekend to go ahead and begin. And for some, I'm aware this might be your very first time giving. This is a perfect opportunity for you to learn how to do this, man, to give your only to Jesus and watch Him turn it into His plenty. Maybe you just weren't even a part of the church when we started this thing, but now you're here and you're like, man, I believe in this. I believe in this vision. You sense the corporate call to be fruitful with regard to this community. And so maybe this is going to be the weekend that you jump on board. I just want to encourage you, dude, just like we talked about, you need to go pray. You just need to go ask Lord. You need to say, Jesus, would you give me this burden? And whatever you want to do, if you want all 5 and all 2 of my fish, that's fine. I'm going to do whatever you tell me because I know you're going to take my only and you're going to turn it into plenty. Verse 20 says, "And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of the broken pieces left over. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children." You know, I really enjoyed my high school wrestling, quote unquote, career, but I truly believe that the most important lesson that I ever learned was that on a team, you've got to prioritize everybody else and make sure they know you've got their back. And that was really not about wrestling. It wasn't about strength training. It was about character. I'm so glad I didn't miss that day. Man, what if I would have missed that? I would have missed such a core thing to my entire adulthood afterward. Can I encourage you? This stewardship journey that we are still on after 2 years together, you might be tempted to think it's just, man, this is about making money. It's actually about character. The character of us as individuals to say, Lord, will I step in and learn this lesson? The character of us as a church and what we'll be able to say to those who come after us. It's really about us learning this deep, profound spiritual lesson. This is how Jesus works throughout my entire life, not just with this thing. I give him my only, and he takes it, and he gives me and those around me and everybody else his plenty. Hey, let's bow our heads and pray. Lord, I know that these lessons are so important, and I know that you really do long to form in each one of those who is listening and watching right now. God, you long to form in us a heart that really does, in every area, trust you with our only so that you can bring plenty. God, would you help us? Would you speak to us this week? Would you show us any other area that it's like we're really thinking like it's all on us, and it really is all on you the moment that we turn everything over to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.